Hey, 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 it's Phenomenal Stemist. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Join me, join me. I'll be talking about the role of or the function of ADHD medications today, and what they are, and the possible side effects. I hope some of you can join me. Happy Father's Day, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to my father. Fathers are important, especially in guiding children to make sure that they have good discipline so that they won't be diagnosed with uh, mental disorders. You have an important role. Yeah, I'm just checking to see if it's live. If I'm live on Facebook, I am. Okay. So we'll get right into it. We're talking about ADHD medication. I don't see anybody. I don't think anybody has joined me as yet, but we'll jump into it. What is ADHD? ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And I did some research on it. And the Center of Disease Control, CDC, says of children aged 5 to 17. Some people really go and diagnose from the age 2. I don't understand why, but we focus on age 5 to 17 years old. 10% of the population in America have been diagnosed with it. And of those diagnosed with ADHD, 14% are boys. So more boys have been diagnosed with ADHD than girls. Only 6.4% girls have been diagnosed with ADHD. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And 10% are African American. So what's alarming about that is 10% are also white Americans. And of course, as you know, we are only 10% of the population. So the fact that we have the equal amount of diagnosed disorders troubles me a little bit. According to the APA, this is the American Psychiatric Association, they say only 5%. So there's a dichotomy there. Hi, Donna, how are you doing? In terms of disorder, when you look at these two maps, I want you to see these maps. Different areas of the countries have different amounts of diagnosis. Now, if you look at California, right? If you look at the West Coast, rich population, very low levels of ADHD diagnosis. Very low levels. When you look at the South, though, like, you know, especially Louisiana and Alabama. Well, this is not Alabama. This is what's Kentucky or something. Alabama, the southern areas. This is between 5 and 10%. High levels of diagnosis in the South and some Midwest regions, and of course, everybody else is about 5%. So different areas of the country diagnose, you know, at different levels. If you look at Texas, even though they don't have as much diagnosis as, let's say, Louisiana, they are giving 80% of their children that have ADHD drugs. Hey, mommy, good to see you. So 80% of the kids that get diagnosed with ADHD, we're giving between 75 and 80% of them some kind of prescription medication. And that is alarming for a behavioral disorder in children who grow. Okay? True children who grow. You're giving 80% of them medication. And that is disturbing to me. I'll say this. My name is Dr. Maya Byfield. I didn't introduce myself, but you know me by now. My name is Dr. Maya Byfield, and I have a bachelor's in biology from Oakwood College, now University. I went to Albert Einstein College of Medicine and received my master's and PhD in molecular pharmacology. So I am not a physician. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychologist. As a matter of fact, hopefully next week, we're working on it, but I believe that we can do it next week. Myself and Dr. Shauna K. Denham Wilkes are going to have a little get together on Zoom to just discuss, the role of addiction in America. I'll talk about the pharmacological aspect, and she'll talk about the psychological aspect. She has a PhD in psychology. So I am not a psychologist, but I am alarmed that children are getting, 80% of children in this country are getting ADHD medication. This was earlier between 2013 and 2015. I'm going to show you a little later how that's drastically beginning to drop, because I'm sure people are realizing because what's going on in the brain, that's actually a problem to me, okay, and to, I think, most people. So what is ADHD? ADHD, once again, is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And my mom's on here. I was accused of being hyperactive as a child. Without a doubt, if you knew me, that's what they called me. They called me hyper. I don't know if I had ADHD or anything, but those were the late 70s, early 80s, where these drugs were just coming out. And I remember someone asking my mother to put me on one of those medications. So, but what does it mean to be hyper or hyperactive? Well, to be hyperactive is you fidget, you squirm, you talk nonstop, you run, you jump, you dash, right? You can't sit down. I wasn't that bad. I guess that's why my mother said she'll be fine. But you can't sit down. You can't do your homework. See, I did my homework. I could sit down. I could do my homework. I could focus. So I guess that's why I was performing well in school. Some students don't perform well in school. They have difficulty performing quiet tasks. They can be impatient. Yeah, that's true. Check. Sometimes they can blurt out inappropriate comments, or sometimes get into conversation. Now, this is where I have trouble, because many of the students that do that, man, they're geniuses, and we just need to learn how to discipline them. But we'll think about this a little later. Can't wait their turn. Like I said, interrupt conversations and other activities. Yeah. Yes, mommy. Somebody thought I had it. They had a PhD, and you're like, no, she'll be fine. And my teacher also said the same thing, and she learned how to manage. I don't know. No insult to the teachers now, but my teachers learned how to manage me. All right. So then on the other side, what's inattention? So it's not just hyperactivity. It's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, meaning not only do you have hyperactivity, you also have attention deficit. So what does that mean? You're easily distracted. You forget major details. I'm just wondering, you see 15%, like 14.2% diagnosis in boys, their brains are different. But anyway, they forget. They have difficulty maintaining focus. They become bored very easily, unless they find something enjoyable. But you give that same person something enjoyable, they can focus. They have trouble completing or turning in their homework assignments. They don't do their work. They daydream a lot. They have struggle following instructions. That's, all of these are examples of those who are inattentive. Okay, so that's not helpful for school. These kind of behaviors are not helpful for school. And my struggle is I really, really believe that there is a lack of diversity in the school system. I think there are too many women. And it's, in my opinion, learning in the school system has become female focused. Even if it's not to focus on the female, the way we learn, we teach. and it's not helpful for boys. Boys need to move around. Boys need to have active learning. I was talking to a mother earlier today about something even biblical, how it's like, talk to them in the morning, talk to them while you're doing this. A lot of the times when you're teaching people, you should actually be doing some kind of action as you teach. This concept of being in the front, sitting down, watching somebody at a chalkboard, I don't even know if that's necessarily really good for learning. Definitely not for boys. All right. So I wonder if, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm not a professional in the psychologist, but I wonder if this is not playing a role in that. And should the action or the some kind of reaction to these problems of inattention and hyperactivity, should it be drug use? But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about what the drug is. All right, so let's go in to find out what these drugs do. What's the common mechanism for ADHD? I looked at all the ADHD medications, and basically many of them are messing with norepinephrine. So norepinephrine or noradrenaline, if you see this is for affecting attention and responding to actions in the brain. It'll contract blood vessels. It'll increase blood flow. Why? If you think about adrenaline, right? Both of them together, they work in the fight or flight nervous system. So we have two systems. We have the somatic nervous system that leads to some kind of action, but voluntary action. But then we have something called the autonomic nervous system. And so the autonomic nervous system plays, one of the parts of the autonomic nervous system is the fight or flight or sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. And those neurons secrete norepinephrine. According to this picture, is called noradrenaline. So remember neurotransmitters I talked to you before about how they release these guys and talk to other neurons. These little purple balls right here, they get released in this space right here, and then they go on and talk to other cells, other neurons, and then those neurons will then have some kind of action. So the neurotransmitter that's involved in fight or flight is called norepinephrine, and the drugs that affect ADHD or are there to treat ADHD most of them are regulating norepinephrine. Most of them are norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. I talked to you about that earlier last week, what that does. Another drug that's like that, we'll get into that a little later. But meaning, you see how you release the little blue balls in the space? They get taken back up. You see this little purple thing right here? They get taken back up when you no longer need it. So you're only supposed to be in fight or flight when there is a scary situation. But when you have a drug that stops the norepinephrine from coming back up, it stays there. So you actually stay in flight or flight. You actually stay in flight or flight when you have these norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. So let me tell you about what fight or flight is. Okay, so you have parasympathetic division, that's rest and digest, and you have sympathetic division, that's fight or flight. So normally you should be at rest, right? You should have normal pupil size. You should have saliva being secreted, so that when you want to eat, you can digest your food using the saliva. Everything that's involved in resting and digesting is activated by this parasympathetic nervous system. So you're not breathing hard, you're peaceful. Your heart's not racing, right? Nothing's wrong. Everything is okay. Your stomach is working. Your intestines are moving food through your body. Why? Because you are at peace, resting and digesting your food. All right. But what happens when a bear comes and tries to chase you? Well, you need to activate this system. It's called the sympathetic division of the nervous system, meaning you want to tell your eyes to open up the pupil so that you can get as much light in as possible. You'll block salivation because you're not going to do anything that has to do with digestion. You're going to focus on getting out of here. So then you'll You'll cause your airways to relax so that you can get lots of air in, because you'll start to breathe heavily. Your heart will start to race, so you will increase your heartbeat, and everything in digestion shuts down. You shut down your digestion. Yeah. Unfortunately, you actually relax your bladder. So that young boy, remember I told you about that young boy that cop scared? What happened? He peed his pants. Why? Because he went straight into this fight or flight. He got extremely afraid of the policeman. Extremely afraid. And so his autonomic nervous system, that means the part of your nervous system that cannot be controlled. You do not control that. Took over. And which side took over? Not the rest and digest side, but the fight or flight side. So norepinephrine is the neurotransmitter that triggers this. So if there's a lot of norepinephrine in your system, then you have wide eyes, big pupils, your heart is beating fast, you're breathing hard, your blood pressure is high. You're focused now because you're paying attention to the danger to get out of here. So I want you to see what norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors do. They cause you to pay attention because there is danger. So while if you have attention deficit disorder where you have issues learning, if I give you a norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, then you'll focus. You'll focus as if the most important thing to know is around you. But with all of that, you're going to have some side effects. All right? So what are the side effects? Let's go back to what I said. In rest and digest, you're salivating. Your intestines are working, you're digesting. Your heart is not beating fast, right? You're not breathing heavily. If you take these kind of norepinephrine uptake inhibitors, then you'll have dry mouth. Your salivation won't be working anymore. You're shutting that down. You lose your appetite. Your digestive system won't be working. You'll have insomnia. Why? Because you're alert and everything matters. It's like you're thinking a bear is around you, so you're very alert, even when you should be sleeping. Fatigue, headache, cough, constipation. Remember, your digestive system shut down. We'll talk about what dizziness does, but the possibility of erectile dysfunction, abdominal pains, issues with your urinary system, a high heart rate, high blood pressure, irritability. These are the side effects of norepinephrine uptake inhibitors, and these are the side effects, like between 7 and 10% high. The most common side effects are the ones on top, and then the 7% ones are down here. High levels of side effects with these drugs, these ADHD medications. There's also hypertension drugs. So the norepinephrine uptake inhibitors are for focus. Sometimes they give you stimulants in combination with anti-hypertension drugs. So I'm seeing some medication that actually lower blood pressure of children as they give stimulants to make them focus. Not the norepinephrine ones, but a different type of stimulant, like the ones that I talked about last week, the amphetamines. So they give amphetamines to stimulate their focus, but then they want to stop the hyperactivity. So they give anti-hypertension drugs, like, drugs that lower the kid's blood pressure so that they won't be hyper. They don't have enough energy to be hyper. These are the type of medication that they're giving children. And I have respect for the psychologists and the psychiatrists in terms of, these are real disorders, many of them. I have to respect the profession. But hypertensive medication to a 6-year-old? So what it does is it lowers that. That's why they get dizzy. They get dizzy because if their blood pressure drops, then they get dizzy. That's what ADHD medications. I'm not naming the names, but all the medication that you know of, that you hear in the news, these are what they are. They are either norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors or low blood pressure medications that make the kids lower their blood pressure so they won't be hyperactive. That's a problem. That's a problem. And there's an argument in the field with respect to the field. There's an argument saying ADHD is underdiagnosed. In my opinion, in my low-level, non-licensed opinion, absolutely not. They're not. I wonder if we really need to consider other options. And what's happening, if you look at 2010, look at this. In 2010, comparing what they did in terms of giving them drugs versus behavioral therapy, you watch certain news companies, they're saying 80% of the children getting medication is bad. It is bad to give children hypertensive and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors to 80% of a child, 80% of children that have been diagnosed with ADHD. And so what's happening, if you look here in 2010, that was the case for most of the country. Most of the country all of the country was between, well, it says less than 70, a little less than 70. But look, the little blue here. And like I said before, the rich states, California, that's not the case. But here, my God, over 80% they're giving these drugs to these children all around the country. And little to none, look at this, of behavioral therapy. So they're just giving in Alabama, all they were doing is giving the kids, over 80% of the children, drugs in 2010. And they did no behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy. Some states were doing both. Some drugs, but heavy amounts of therapy. Over 51% of the children were getting some kind of cognitive therapy. As to why? Because that's the way. If you go to 2016 now, they realized giving all those children medication that we don't even know the effects of giving children. You guys who are older, you know what it means to have medication, low blood pressure medication. You know about what it does to your liver and your kidney. We have no idea what the long-term effects of giving children these kind of medications are doing to their livers. Nor do we understand what it actually is doing to their brains. So what happens is they say, nah, this is actually a bad thing. So in 2016, the children that have ADHD, now 62% of them are taking medication. And they've increased the behavioral treatment up to 47% because they know that they need to go a different route. They know now that they need to think about it in a different route. There's been a significant drop of medication to children. Yeah, it's greed, it's business, drug companies. And the reality is, if you look at ADHD medications and compare them, you know what this drug is? This drug is cocaine. This is a common ADHD medication, and this is cocaine. Very common in the way it looks. You talk about gateway drug. People talk about marijuana is the gateway drug. Not in my opinion. This is the gateway drug right here. It looks just like cocaine. Matter of fact, it looks a lot like cocaine, number one. Number two, it does the same thing as cocaine. It has the same action as cocaine. The difference is cocaine has been crushed into a powder and snorted or heated to inhale, which it floods the brain, and it heightens the level of the same side effects that this drug gives, as well as a high level of addiction. That's why they're saying you have to take this type of medication, the ADHD drug, carefully. Like, you have to take it as a pill. If you crush it, if you have high doses of it, it does the same thing as if you were on cocaine. It's the same, similar mechanism, similar chemical structure, and same mechanism. It's just that one you swallow at low doses, and the other one you snort or heat up like in a crack pipe. And so now they're seeing the effects of it in adults. Now they're seeing that there are a whole bunch of adults that are taking ADHD medication drugs. They were taking it as children, or they found out they were not diagnosed with ADHD, but they found out that it can make you hyper focused. And so they take it so that they can get through all of the schools that are Ivy League and things like that. It's an epidemic in the Ivy Leagues. Young adults who were not diagnosed are taking these type of medications like it's candy, to the point where they just said that young adult women are now abusing ADHD medication at high rates. Remember, only 6% of children that are female were diagnosed with ADHD. 6%. And then there's a high rate of women taking this medication now, young adult women. Number one, because they're trying to compete at high levels in school. And other reasons, a lot of times they're using it for the side effects, the high sex drive. I'm seeing that in many of these in the news articles, etc. So we have to avoid the peer pressure that even, college brings. Because when you have high levels of this stuff in your brain, it's really no different than cocaine. Because cocaine is a norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. And this drug and a lot of other ADHD medicated drugs are norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. All right. Any questions? Hey guys, Don, Princess Rwanda. Any questions? Hey, Mark, how you doing? Thanks for joining. I hope I really explained to you what ADHD drugs do. Some of them are cocaine-like, just at low levels, and they hit you at a low level. They are norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. They activate your sympathetic nervous system. The other, they add it with methamphetamine stimulants to focus you, with anti-hypertension drugs, which lower your pressure. And so you can focus and lose blood pressure so you don't have enough energy to be fidgety. I don't think that's a good thing. I really believe cognitive behavioral therapy is what we need to focus on. And I think more and more people are feeling the same way. And that's why there's a drastic dip in drugs alone. Now they're either combining it with behavioral therapy or doing behavioral therapy alone. I do think we need to think about the way we teach our children, especially our boy children. We may need to change the way we teach. I feel like as women, we teach in a way for women. Yeah, Don, you heard this before? Glad. Okay, good. Treatment varies by race. I looked for that. I did, like I said before, when I looked at the CDC, I feel like it's 10%, but it's like 10.2% for blacks and 10.4% for whites. And the reason why that's actually a weird thing is seeing that we are only 10% of the population. But I don't know if I read the statistics wrong. But as I look around, they say that actually African Americans are underdiagnosed. But I know they're really trying to rush. I know they have a history. We have a history of saying that we have behavioral problems. We don't necessarily say ADHD because, truth be told, you're going to have to go to a physician and they're going to have to check levels that are found in your brain for them to say ADHD. So they won't say ADHD maybe, but they'll say behavioral issues. They are pushing medications to children, to parents because of what they think. But I was reading at CDC, they were like, you shouldn't go based on teachers' recommendation, but you have to have physician recommendation. And I just think, I don't have any children, so I'll preface with that. And I don't have any children in the system. But I have friends who are teachers, and they're saying, oh, it's getting crazy in there. But I wonder if it's because they're already hopped up on drugs, maybe from the womb. I mean, we're having people taking medications and these drugs for years. Behavior is treated in school as ADHD racially. Okay. I looked around for it. I didn't see that. But I know I've heard that for sure. But right now, it still seems that the Caucasian population is heavier diagnosed with ADHD medications. And young adults, definitely. That is definitely a Caucasian issue. When they're in college in many of these Ivy League schools and they're trying to compete and they're taking these drugs just to stay focused. But the problem is it's not supposed to be given to adults. And we have no idea what long-term effects of childhood and adulthood taking these medications for a long time can do. Yeah. But we got to stop saying that you're just hyper. And we have to look at ways to modify people's behavior in a cognitive behavioral therapy kind of way versus just giving them drugs. Yeah, exactly. It's the drug culture. Yeah, it is sad. So, this is what happens when your brain is on drugs. In my opinion, this is the real gateway drug. These drugs, most of them are norepinephrine inhibitors, just like cocaine. Yeah. And nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about that. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. Let me close this. I hope you enjoyed this is your Brain on Drugs series. This is my last series, or episode in terms of drugs. So last time we did sedatives and dopaminergic stimulants last week, and this week it was about fight or flight, norepinephrine, and drugs that treat ADHD. Next week I'm going to be getting together with Dr. Shauna K. Denham Wilkes, and she's going to give her perspective as a psychologist, because I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't want to just put my opinion based on just the pharmacology of it all. I do want to get her perspective on drugs and addictions. Let me see what she says, sister. Below income generational parents are telling their children to go to school and act crazy. That way they will be diagnosed and parents will collect Social Security. My God, that can't. Wow. Really? What's my opinion on that? I have no I have no idea about that. Is that a myth? Is that the truth? Yes, Don, you missed marijuana. That was last week. Just check the it's in the page. Marijuana was last week. Wow, sister. I don't know if that's true. If that is the case, that is terrible. And whoever is a part of that process needs to go to jail. And it's not just them, because they have no idea what these drugs are doing. It's like giving your kid, setting up your kid. Let me not say that. I don't want to say that. That's a little strong. Most of these drugs are norepinephrine inhibitors, reuptake inhibitors, meaning they keep norepinephrine there. They keep them in fight or flight. And you saw all the side effects that can happen from that. So this is for a fact on the rise. Wow. This is why education is so important. This is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because of that reason. These drugs are terrible, right? And a lot of the times, therapy is not covered. Behavioral therapy many of the times is not covered by insurance. So you have a choice between drugs and behavioral therapy or both, and they choose what's covered by Medicaid. And what's covered by Medicaid is the drug, not the behavioral therapy some of the times. And so you're putting your kids on these drugs just to get a check. My people, we are destroyed because of lack of knowledge. And so, it's so important for us who have this knowledge to explain this. And that's why I've been so passionate about This Is Your Brain on Drugs. I'm really glad that, I felt impressed to really do this. And I hope people watch, and please share, share last week's marijuana episode. I hope I was clear as to what these drugs do to the brain, and we really don't even know. We really don't even know what the drugs do to the children's brain. It hasn't been, it's only been since the late 70s, early 80s, and so we have look at the opioid, and look at the cocaine, and look at the epidemic of drug use in this country. Could it be because our children have been hopped up on these things for years? My mom asks, she wonders what percentage of the substance abusers are parents. They themselves being substance abusers. I don't know. Could be. And it's like an ever-ending cycle. We get our kids hopped up on drugs. We're hopped up on drugs. We have to help the children. We have to help the parents. We have to educate. Yeah, we need to. Yeah, sister. We need to go into the neighborhoods and talk sense. Yeah, I know I'm doing this via everything that I'm doing online. I plan to do when I have an available conference center. So my dream is to speak to our communities in a place that is in our communities, and I'm open to do this. I already have the PowerPoint set up. All I need now is the venue. And I hope our church gets together and really creates these kind of things for the community to come in and see. I'm down for whatever. Yeah, the drug companies are making money off of this. Absolutely. That's why 80% of children with ADHD are medicated. Like, I don't know the drug percentages of other diseases, but 80%, if you have something, everybody got to be on medication for a behavioral. And we don't even know what level of hyperactivity or attention deficit they have, and their children, meaning they grow. Many of them grow out of it. And if they grow out of it, then medication should not be the first end all be all. And that's why they're switching. They're saying, since many of these kids grow out of it, then cognitive behavioral therapy needs to be the answer. Yeah, and young children at that. Yeah, my mom says when she was in the field, she was a substance abuse counselor. And when she was in the field, many of these children were introduced to drugs. I mean, many of these adults were introduced to drugs as children. And if you think about it, cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, and these drugs, ADHD medication and prescription medications, they start using as teenagers. And last week I told you about this. The way the brain develops, it develops slowly. It grows a lot, but then it starts to develop slowly. You don't really get a full development until around 20 years old. So when you're 16, 17, you actually have a lot of connections between the neurons. They're talking to one another. So you're smart. You're taking hard classes, let's say in high school, and you're doing all kinds of stuff. But the part that's involved in managing risk and controlling your emotions is still underdeveloped. And so they do all kinds of risky behaviors, even though they can process information really well. They can read, they can write, they can do math problems. They don't handle their emotions and their risk management that well. And so they're at risk a lot of the times of drug abuse. They speed, they do all kinds of reckless activities. Yeah. Hey, Chi says, Chi says, I chose not to place my son on drugs due to all the side effects. Ultimately, he was never a behavior issue, but could not sit for more than 5 minutes. The issue angered teachers. Yep. And I had to let them know that was not acceptable. There are so many choices to consider besides drugs. Many children in my class have sat starry-eyed and will not engage at all. I was determined that my son would never be on those drugs. Absolutely. And Chi, 80% to children who grow out of this stuff, like your child. And I was saying this earlier. I don't know if you heard me, if you were in the beginning, but I was hyper as a child, and my mother was told by one of our family members that you might want to consider one of those ADHD drugs, especially it was brand new at the time. You're going to put a child on something that they don't even know about. All right. I did not have issue with focus. I was excellent in school. And I think partially because my teachers gave me like an abundance of work, like lots of stuff to do. So I never had the opportunity to distract people or, do any kinds of things or sit down. But also, second, for your son, boys, 14% of boys are diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm wondering if our way of teaching is wrong. We are mostly women teaching, and we teach to the girl as girls. We teach for girls. And so we don't do activities where you teach while you learn, you move around, my father is a teacher, and he says he has a system in his classroom where you have one station and you do this, and they get up and they go, because most of his students are autistic boys. And you can't just sit in a classroom and teach and have them sit down. That's not the way boys learn. So yeah, I'm thinking more and more people are saying drugs are a problem. And that's why it has significantly dropped as compared to maybe 2010, 2011. and they're increasing cognitive behavioral therapy because truly you can use your own body to focus. But unfortunately, a lot of the times that behavioral therapy is not covered. Maybe, drugs are covered. Yeah, they experiment on the poor and the ignorant. Exactly, and those who want money. Those who want money, they get benefits from having their children being ADHD diagnosed. Come on, guys. We gotta affect change in our world. I'm so passionate about this. It's time for us to stop talking. I know with me, I'm willing to do this not just via Facebook, but I want to hold seminars. I just need a venue, and we're gonna have to work this out. God is going to have to provide an opportunity for me to educate the poor and the ignorant, as Don said, because I can't judge them. They don't know. They don't know. Yeah, mental health is an issue in neighborhoods, Mom and Chi-Chi. Some teachers are just not interested in putting energy into children with special needs. Yeah. That's a powerful statement right there. Teaching has become a job in lieu of a career. No disrespect to teachers, but especially in schools and in the hood, in the community. Like I know some community schools where it's like 70% substitutes teachers. 70% substitutes, meaning that many of them are, they're teaching in lieu of a career, and hopefully some of them find the joy in teaching and realize that that's their calling. But I wonder if how many of teachers are called to teach and deal with students who may be hyperactive. And I know it could be frustrating. I know that many of the times teachers are not getting paid well. They're called on to be more than just a teacher. They're not trained in counseling. Their job is not to do behavioral therapy, with all due respect in terms of the teachers. But I just know that my teachers had control. Back in the 80s, they also allowed corporal punishment too. They don't allow corporal punishment anymore. So I went to a private Seventh Adventist school, West Indian focused, West Indian based. We got spanked. But even when I was in the public school system, Miss Felder, she didn't spank us. But she had a plan. She basically said, all right, I'm going to have extra work, and whoever gets the goal, she generated the competitive edge in me. So I would do all the work. I would focus so much on work that I wouldn't be a distraction. But I had good focus. Some people have hyperactivity with attention deficit. So they're not focused and they're hyperactive. That's that. So that means that something has to happen as well. Education has become a business. Not a good one, because the teachers ain't getting paid well. Yeah, be the change. Yeah, my prayer is that our young Black children, we get properly educated, and we have to do our best as a village. We have to be a better village. We have to be a better village. Yeah, it's time for us to start. Yeah, exactly, Don. We got to step up to our community. Stop talking. We got to stop talking and start doing. I'm anybody in Orlando, Apopka area, you want to be a part of doing something, give me a call. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of chitter chatter. Let's get to work. Let's get to work. Not everybody's a teacher, though, so the homeschool, we're paying taxes. We should have opportunities for our children in the public school system. All right, Chi-Chi says, where children are placed in classrooms where the legal term is called dumping. What does that mean? Due to numbers in the classroom, the focus is not on students as individuals, but how many children can be placed in the classroom. Yep, that's an issue. That's an issue. And too many children. Can you imagine all of them having hyped up? My God. And many of them are not necessarily hyperactive. They are traumatized. I had a commentary on trauma back in May. So just to let you know, I've been doing Mental Health Month since May, Mental Health Month episodes in May, and then drug use in June. And many of our children that are hyperactive, that have behavioral issues, it's not due to a disorder via, levels of dopamine, etc., that they say for hyperactivity disorder. Many of it has to do with trauma that's leading to that. And if we need to deal with the trauma that they're experiencing in our communities, we need to deal with the emotional issues that is causing that. Because many of the times it's emotional issues due to trauma that's leading to that. And if we help with that as a village, then you'll probably see the behavioral issues drop, and you won't have to hop them up on ADHD drugs that are likened to cocaine. In Florida, it's legal to use it without bruises. What do you mean by that? To use it without bruises? I'm confused. Yeah, nutrition and diet matter. Wow, dumping. There's so much work to do. There's so much work to do, and and the laborers are few. And we got to get to the place where we're not saying, oh, but it's because X or it's because Y. Put up or shut up. Who can save us but us? Yeah, not enough support. We need to provide. Yeah, we're paying taxes. We need to demand it from our government that they support our children, and they don't dump a whole bunch of children, especially those who have probably some kind of special need, on one teacher without the support. Yeah, guys, we're having a great conversation. I'm glad you guys are here to talk about these things. I think homeschooling is a reasonable option, but we have to have dedicated parents. And I feel like if you're not dedicated enough to demand change from your own institution, will you be dedicated enough to build your own co-op? If you are, then okay. But I feel like, we went through the civil rights movement for integration, for equal opportunities and equal education. And I feel like, are we getting that? And should we demand it? You guys are opening my eyes. Like I said before, I don't have any children in the system. I don't have any children. Yeah, the private schools do get dumped on. And this time you're paying $900, and they're suspending your children at rates that are yeah, it's not good. There's so much to do. Thank you guys for joining. This has been a intense conversation on attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. I'm excited about next week talking about addiction. I really hope that you guys enjoyed us learning about what drugs do to the brain. Me started homeschool. What would I need? I would need a husband for that, Sister Rwanda. I would. That's something I would need. Pray for me. But I do have a dream to impact the community in some kind of way deeper um than my profession as a college professor. I don't think I have the patience for children, to be honest. I think I'm a great teacher, but to those who have a certain cognitive level and desire for learning. And children, they can be a little funny. I love to tutor them for an hour a week. That's as much as I got. Maybe an hour and a half, the most. But children can be tough. I tutor since the church hasn't been open, I haven't tutored in a while, but every Wednesday. So so Chi-Chi says she homeschooled her older two children when married. However, after you went to the divorce, you had to work longer hours. I see. And you never know what the divorce also does. The divorce affected me as well. So it's like everybody has their story, their process, and it'll be all right though. Like, I just believe, like, if we just are intentional in intentional in everything that we do, and understanding what's going on, things will get better. But I know for sure drugs aren't I can't say aren't the way. I'm not a physician, but I don't like our brains being on drugs. How about that? I don't like our brains being on drugs. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the loves and the support. See you guys next week.